Hi, my name is Colleen Jetter, and today I will be talking to you about the Oklahoma City bombing, which took place in 1995. So, what happened in Oklahoma City in 1995? So, it took place April 19th, 1995, and has affected the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. This was the biggest act of homegrown terrorism that has ever affected the country up until this point, still. And so basically, what happened was an individual decided to rebel against the government by creating a homemade bomb and deciding to place it in front of the building, blowing up a third of the building. He placed it in front of the building, ignited it, and then decided to leave, go to his getaway car, and drive away. A third of the building crumbled, killing 168 people. 20 of them being children who were in the daycare on the second floor. There were 9 floors of this building, and most of the offices were all federal government offices other than the daycare. Once the building fully came down, it took a total of 16 days for them to fully go through, for the rescue team to fully go through and find all the people and all the body parts, as everything was a mess and there was a massive pile of rubble, which also caused a lot of trauma, not only to the victims, but as well to the people going to rescue these individuals. Most of the people in Oklahoma did know someone affected by this, and people all over the country knew people who were affected by this, helping with this issue, or who were actually in the building, and some who died. As you can see in this picture, this is how the building ended up looking. There was one source that said that McVeigh, the individual who did this, chose this building because of how much glass there was, so more would shatter to look more destroyed. How open of an area it was, so more people can get pictures and more people could gather around and see what he did and the harm that he did. And then he also chose the area because how far they were to non-federal buildings, because he didn't want to hurt people that weren't in the government. And there was a parking garage closed because that was stable and that wouldn't get destroyed, but he wanted to inflict as much harm as he could on this building as possible. So who did it and why did they do it? So the first one, the biggest one, the man who actually did the bombing himself, is Timothy McVeigh. He was an ex-military individual. He was in the military for a couple years. When he was in the military, at one of his stations, he did meet the other 2 people that knew about this, who you'll see in a second. But McVeigh, he truly despised the government and what they did and how they were changing government officials from turning them into agents to turning them into super soldiers, being able to do anything that they truly wanted to do. He also thought that it was unfair that the government can go off and bomb something and he could not, so this was his stand. He also, the one act that really set him off was what happened in Waco, Texas, a couple years prior. He actually did it on the anniversary of Waco because he was so outraged of what happened with the government and how everything went down that he decided that this was his stand, and he was hoping to unite people to come together to help him and maybe create an uprising to go against the government. Next, we have Terry Nichols. He was the one who was McVeigh's main accomplice. He actually stole and found a lot of the materials that was needed for the bomb. He also drove McVeigh to the location to get the car and placed the getaway car, as he was his main accomplice and wanted to help in any way he can without setting the actual bomb. And then finally we have Michael Fortier. He was someone who wasn't as much involved with the case, but he did know about a lot of it. 9 months prior, McVeigh had come over to Michael's house and he told him his whole plan His wife knew about it. He used soup cans to actually show and portray how he was going to do it and what was going to happen and how he could inflict the most damage. All three of these men met at these barracks. One was in charge and one was a bunkmate to McVeigh. And that's where they all read the Turner Diaries as well, a white supremacy book. And that's what really united them and made them come together, as they had a common ground where they would all use to draw on this future event that happened. And McVeigh really drew on that and used that as inspiration for this bombing. So the FBI investigation for this case was truly extensive. It was one of the biggest investigations that they've done in the country up until that point, and they spared no expense to find out exactly who did this, why they do it. Everything needed to be on the table for this, as so many federal employees were harmed in this event of political violence. So it was a very extensive and thorough investigation. They actually had 137 witnesses of the event, which they talked to every single one of them extensively. There was 28,000 interviews, and there was 43,000 investigative leads. That might be one of the biggest FBI investigations within the country that they've ever done. So for the rulings for each of the conspirators for this event, as it is a conspiracy, as there's only 3 of them and it was planned out, McVeigh, he was found guilty. It was fully unanimous. People chose that there's nothing that he had to back him up. He couldn't unite anyone. No one was on his side in his trial. He served 6 years, and then he was sentenced to capital punishment. He died by injection in June of 2001, just a couple months before September 11th, the next biggest terrorist event on American soil. Next was Terry Nichols. He served life in prison without parole. He was found guilty of all the same charges as McVeigh, and he is still in jail today at the age of 68, I believe, and he will be in there for the rest of his life. He's tried to appeal a couple times, but has been unsuccessful in that. And then Michael Fortier served 11 years, and his wife was found not guilty, was not tried at all. He served his time, got out a little early, almost 11 years, and then the government took him into witness protection program, and that's where he is living now under an alternate identity. So my thoughts on this event is I can't get over how this happened. As you can see, this is on the left. This is the one photo of the firefighter that always comes up if you look it up, or always is shown. There was a news article I read where someone didn't know where their child was. They was in the daycare, and they didn't know where they were, and then they found that picture in the newspaper the next day, and they knew that was their child, and it was plastered everywhere, and they could not get over it, and they couldn't grieve because it was everywhere. And I'm sure people are still grieving up into this day. Parents are still there, and their children are still not with them, and I think it's truly horrible, and I don't know what happened to McVeigh that made him think this way, but I'm just so surprised and dumbfounded that this happened, and how evil it really was to kill that many people and then just drive away. And the only reason he was caught so soon was because his license plate was off, and he got pulled over, and he was about to be let free when they found out that it was him. So I can't believe that happened, but I'm glad it did happen for them to find him that quickly and efficiently. But it's just so surprising that this was such an event in our history. And here are my references. Thank you so much.